Hello everyone, Lasarius here. I'm bored, cold and sick, so time to make World of Warcraft videos. These are based on recordings of our most recent Blackwing Lair run. I've decided that this time I'm going to try and focus in on mistakes that we made with the benefit of perfect hindsight due to the videos and very careful examination of the logs. I'm going to start with Vale, since Razorgore went pretty smoothly. We one-shot Vale, but you'll see at the end of the fight that we were actually not that far from having some fun. I'm going to let the fight run, and we'll see how things stand towards the end. Okay, so we succeeded in killing the boss. However, I'd like you to pay close attention to Oplos here shortly. Oop. You can see that he's dead before the boss hits the ground. Let's go back and take a look briefly right at the end there. Taking a look at the threat meter, we can see that there are 2 melee DPS above the next tank, and particularly Dog is standing over with the main raid instead of over here with the off tanks, so there's a nice breath waiting if he should get aggro. Gadir is also way down here, which I think is not very good. We managed to kill the boss before Oplos died, just about, so this didn't happen, but if we'd gotten a few less crits, maybe things could have been more awkward for us. I'm going to move on and take a look at Broodlord, which is quite a lot more chaotic. Hello everyone. Hopefully this time you will actually have the game audio for Broodlord. So starting off with the Broodlord fight, let's take a look.
It's been pulled, it's been pulled. Just go, just go.
Take him to the spot.
Everyone in your position.
That's device.
Device, that's perfect.
Second
Don't worry.
roll.
Yeah, give me a second as I just slowly make my way over here because there was a fucking device.
Alrighty.
So Gadir dies pretty quickly in this fight. I've had a look at the logs and more or less he didn't receive a lot of healing. Having listened back to the audio, you will see that none of the tanks, or indeed anyone in the raid, mentioned which tank had aggro. There was more than one healer who continued to heal Tattoo even after he lost aggro, so I feel that the principal problem here is that the tanks did not call out who had aggro. So when Gadir took aggro, no one healed him, and that was kind of the end of that.
Yep.
So just an extra note after I've finished recording this, you'll also notice that when we pull the boss, Gadir has aggro, then Tattoo takes aggro, and then Gadir takes aggro back from him. I feel like we would have had a much better chance of healing the correct tank if a specific tank had aggro, and then we just left it at that.
Everyone in position. We have Gadir dead. Tattoo is now holder of the aggro. Please kill the whelps for now.
Demoralizing shout.
You don't have to kill whelps. You can just ignore them.
Are they tanked? Yes, they are. Okay, do not pay attention to the whelps.
Can people stop removing Winter's Chill? Some putting a debuff on it. And
Can we just focus on the fight?
That is the fight.
Yeah, not putting pointless debuffs on is focusing on the fight. Someone's putting something.
Okay, so Tattoo got hit with the boss's knockback, which reduces threat by 50%, you can see that the next person on the threat meter is not actually the next tank, it's Jormungandr, who promptly gets owned by the boss. And luckily, I've taken threat before Illith can die. So principally, I think that this is a missing buff for myself, which I'm supposed to give, called Omen of Clarity, which just lets me generate a bit of extra threat. Also, I got a couple of unlucky misses and stuff at the beginning of the fight. If I'd just had a bit more threat, then this would not have been a problem. That being said, I kind of feel like the melee DPS need to watch the threat meter a bit more carefully and make sure they stay under the tanks. But you'll also notice that no one mentioned that I now have aggro.
Keep going like that.
So, to cut a long story short, having reviewed the logs, the blast wave has hit me for 3,500, then the boss has mortal striked me for about another 4,500, and thrown a couple of melees, and that was not enough. I had a couple of healers who were healing me, but far from the whole main tank healing shebang, probably again due to the fact that no one mentioned who had aggro, so probably a lack of aggro callouts on this one. Okay, the Saris is dead.
How's it looking with
Garrett
health?
has the aggro, so
I think the
There's
Thunder
nothing I
Cube
can
is
do.
actually.
Just keep
Garrett
it in the
still
corner.
has aggro.
Keep it in the corner.
Okay.
In this case again, luckily the boss has died before he manages to get through most of the raid. Particularly thanks to Garrett for your evasion. In this case, because Tattoo had the knockback, realistically he probably wasn't going to get aggro back. So the main thing here is that the tanks weren't calling out who had aggro, so the healers didn't know who to heal. The damage from the boss can spike quite high, and also I didn't have all my buffs, which was stupid of me. So those are the main things, but we were also discussing that the boss had Curse of Recklessness, which we probably shouldn't give Broodlord because he really hurts. That's pretty much the main lessons from Broodlord. I'll be taking a look at Firemore next. Okay guys, you may remember that we killed Firemore first time, but it was pretty messy. There were a lot of people dead. There are a lot of things that could be improved for this fight, so I've made notes and hopefully I'm going to remember to hit them all. To begin with, we will start with pulling.
And you're really gonna be taunting off, so your threat's not that important. You can keep your shield on if need be.
Yes. I will.
5, 4.
We are live. Alrighty. On the serious.
Ooh. So the pull here hasn't really gone that well. You can see that I'm on very low hit points right now. Having checked the logs, basically the boss procced a thrash with both a crit and a crush, which is about as bad as it can get. But I'm nearly dead already. Luckily some people are already channeling a heal, so I'm gonna survive. Partly this is due to the fact that I mismanaged my Stone Shield potion duration, so that it ran out right as I was pulling the boss, which is pretty bad. Having spoken to some of the other tanks, it seems that the boss cannot Shadow Flame for about the first 10 or 15 seconds of the fight, so I think that when pulling it would be best if we had a healer or two, possibly a Bubbled Paladin if you're feeling paranoid, to heal me while I position the boss the first time. The other thing of note is that because I died on Broodlord, I lost my world buffs, and particularly the Diamol health buff, and my fire gear just doesn't have that big a health pool to begin with, so I actually don't have that many max hit points, unfortunately.
Careful, serious.
Looks good.
Okay, everyone, go in.
buffet in 10,
Yep, 10 seconds.
7, 6, 5,
5
12.
seconds.
Oh, it's working so
Someone
well,
too
guys.
assisted.
It's fine, that's good.
Challenging shout, it's good.
So this
Back.
is an example of the problems that we've been having with wing buffet. Having checked the logs, basically both Tattoo and I got hit with wing buffet. It turns out that none of the BWL preparation videos that we watched when designing this strategy mentioned that wing buffet is actually a cone that hits everyone in front of it. Unfortunately, with our current positioning, then Firemaw is almost always going to hit both tanks with wing buffet, which is why the off tank is keeping aggro so often with the wing buffet, and then the boss needs to be repositioned. This happens with almost all the wing buffet pulls in the fight. Unfortunately, it's a little tricky to figure out what the positioning should be, because the other positioning strategies we've seen, we had problems with the range getting shadow flamed. I'm going to try and discuss some other tank positioning strategies next time so that we won't have this problem.
Try and get it back in position. Be careful ranged.
Okay.
Okay,
So, having succeeded in repositioning the boss, he just popped the shadow flame. Luckily, I got him back in the right position about 1 second before it went off. Shadow Flame hits for about 4,500 even if you're wearing the cloak, so most ranged DPS are just gonna get one shot by that. Kindly, Oplos warned people, but really it's a bad on my part that I didn't tell people to get in cover while I'm repositioning the boss.
stabilize ranged. 15, 14. How many buffs do you have to do? Easy about. Yeah. Good,
Oh,
yeah.
yeah.
Okay, so looking at Tattoo's death, half the problem is that because of the aforementioned tank positioning, the other consequence is that the off tank gets hit with the Shadow Flame as well, so he ate a fair chunk of damage from that. The other thing is that he had 11 stacks of Flame Buffet, and the 12th stack was just too much, so he really just needed to head out a bit sooner to stay alive.
Fuck it. Good, yeah.
Okay,
I'll
can
take
we
over. It's fine. Good, yeah. Don't worry about it.
wing buffet in 5.
So you may notice that I've just lost a bunch of my maximum hit points. Well, not a bunch, about 200. Basically, this is because I enraged and I've hit the buff cap. I didn't really realise that was something that happened to druids as well as warriors, but clearly it does. So I will need to start worrying about the buff cap and get some kind of add-on for that.
5. 3. Sarius is
Very good.
Okay, for this wing buffet, pretty much the same as before. Both tanks got hit by the wing buffet. Although it does say something about the aggro situation, that even after both tanks get wing buffeted, the DPS still don't pull aggro.
okay. It's
It's
now
still
an
on me.
applause.
Take over.
Resist,
Take over.
AoE swaps. Yep.
Good, yeah. Go.
Okay, so the main tank has died. Basically, this is due to a couple of factors. The first thing is that, similarly to Broodlord, when the tank was switched, not all of the healers properly switched their targets. Oplos received quite a few heals, whilst I didn't receive that many. The second major thing is that the Flame Buffet stacks were actually building up. If I go back just a bit,
Good, yeah. Go in.
you'll see here that I actually have 10 stacks, which is about 1500 damage every 2 seconds. That combined with Thrash is what finished me. So in this case, I ran the numbers, and actually I only have about a 5% chance of resetting my Flame Buffet stacks. Otherwise, I'm still going to accrue stacks, just not as quickly as everyone else. So after I've been in the fight for about a minute to a minute and a half, I'm going to accrue a problematic number of stacks. So I think that probably the correct solution is that either we need to assign a lot more healing to the main tank to deal with more damage from Flame Buffet than we were expecting, or we need to consider some kind of main tank rotation. See, in this case, I think that if we'd properly called things out and the healers were really on the ball, maybe I could have survived, but if you extrapolate this, the boss is on 60% health. If you imagine where he would be on 20% health if I have 20 stacks and I'm taking 3,000 damage every 2 seconds, it's not going to be that great. So I think that we need to consider how we're going to handle that.
Kadir, go in. Get ready.
I'm dead. Viserys is
We
dead.
lost the six. Okay, can we have...
Okay. Careful.
Bella?
Moving him around a bit. Okay. Kadir, can he be seen by healers?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, get into position. Get ready to
Buffet
taunt.
in 4 seconds.
Taunt Kadir. I'm gonna be dead here in a second, I think. Okay.
Okay, I've been battle rest. Let me know if you want to swap Oplos.
Yep, it's probably gonna be in a little bit.
Okay, so having been battle resed, I've got to say good job by paladins, and not so great by everyone else. I haven't asked for fortitude, to be entirely fair, but I also didn't receive it, which is not very good. Also, I really could have taken this opportunity to innovate Zaramosa. You'll see that my hit point pool is pretty low, which is gonna finish me off pretty quickly.
And just taunted off.
And also, to be entirely fair, I didn't bother buffing myself, so not exactly blaming the priests on this one.
Actually, no. Go in and be ready to stand on top of me. Stand on top of me.
Buffet in
Kadir,
7
There's no melee
taunt
healers.
in 3, 2, taunt. Ready to take over the series?
Yep, ready.
There are no melee healers.
Buffet.
Taunt.
So, essentially what's happened here
Wait. Fuck.
is that the taunt resisted, but I just didn't notice the text. And the other thing is that because the boss was targeting me, and my threat meter shows that I'm on high threat, then I think the taunt has succeeded, but actually I never succeeded in taunting the boss. So as soon as Kadir takes the wing buffet and Oplos runs away, the boss goes and follows Oplos, and enjoys ganking half the raid. So I think under ordinary circumstances I've never had a problem seeing whether or not taunts resist, but having rewatched the video, the yellow resist text on the yellow flame buffet damage effect is actually not that easily visible for me, so I obviously need to get an add-on for that.
Side.
Got him.
Try to take him back in position, please.
No melee healers, by the way. It was said earlier.
Literally no melee healers. They can't do anything.
I'm coming around, I'm coming around. McGinn is coming around.
Wing Buffet in 5 seconds.
I have a 9 buffet shit
Taunt Kadir.
done.
It's reposition again, unfortunately.
McGinn is dead.
Careful.
So, unfortunately, simple mathematics explains this one. Shadow Flame hit me for 4,500. I only had 5,400 hit points, so a simple melee finished the job. I suppose it's also fair to point out that I wasn't pre-shielded for the Shadow Flame, but I had such a low health pool that if the boss had proc Thrash or unlucky Flame Buffets or whatever, then that also would have been the end of me. Okay, the series is dead.
Alright, try to
Just
roll
take
if
over,
you
Kadir, take
can.
over. Take over and
In all of it.
burst, massive damage. It's the best hope we have.
Go all in, and wait, he will go down.
Okay, Kadir, you need to be ready as soon as he targets someone
Buffet
else, you
in
taunt.
3.
Copy that.
Just burst him.
Taunt. Nice.
Done.
Nice.
And it went down.
Well done.
First
It-
try.
So, in total, there were quite a few things that went wrong in the fight. Some of them little details, like better managing the time of the Stone Shield potions. Others, like the tank positioning, and the flame buffet stack management could have been quite a bit better. Generally, I think that the tank positioning is the one we need to really nail. The other two things on my list are, firstly, Blood Pact. You'll have seen that the damage can spike quite high, so I think that if we're going to run without Titans, then it's probably a really good idea to have Blood Pact for the main tanks. And the second thing is that we are using Curse of Recklessness on Firemore, which is the trade-off is a bit different to normal because the DPS can only spend half their time or less actually DPSing the boss. So it's kind of like the boss is continually hitting the tanks harder, but we're only gaining half the benefit of the increased DPS because the DPS have to spend so much time avoiding stacks. So I think that possibly we should reconsider the use of Curse of Recklessness for Firemore. In fact, I might suggest a similar approach to Broodlord, where we skip Curse of Recklessness and put on Demoralizing Shout or Demoralizing Roar instead, to maximize the tank's survivability. Because, as we've seen, the Flame Buffet stags, we can't rely on them remaining low throughout the fight, so we need that extra bit of wiggle room in the tank's survivability. I'm going to take a look at the other boss fights, but I don't think there was anything in any of those that really needs commenting on, so that's probably it.
Alrighty, please. Do you have enough aggro so we can heal you or not?
Yep.
1.5k.
Let's
I
go.
tranked. Druid does next rank.
You see the
Wing
cooldown?
buffet in 8 seconds.
Oh fuck yeah, too early, too early.
Logan, you do next
I'll
rank.
just slow down.
Rank
I'll slow
two.
down and quit.
Oh my.
Oh, tattoo dead, tattoo dead.
Can you fill in?
Take over.
Or Gadir even?
Hey guys, I remembered that one last thing to cover is the death of the main tank on Nefarian. You'll see that he is dropped fairly quickly. Let's take a look.
Unless there's another rogue call.
Yeah.
Nice.
Throw it
Wow.
away.
Thanks, man.
Mage call.
Could we get an innovate on
Change
beginners, please?
blink away.
Get behind the pillar. No!
DK's that.
Yeah.
He's a
I'm
cat.
running.
He's
Hopefully we haven't messed up the range on healers too much.
alrighty. Please slow down DPS for the transition.
Wait, you're better at being in cat form than
Tattoo
Oh,
feared,
don't-
tattoo feared, tattoo feared.
Oh my.
Just bring it
I
back.
thought I had clear word, my
Still
bad.
has it. Please wait for the call. I'll give you the signal.
Priest
Priest
call.
do not DPS.
Only renew.
No
Only
more
renew.
direct heals. It's all on the paladins.
Jake, why am I seeing damage?
Stop DPS, please.
Mages stop damage.
Thank you. Alright. Call ends in 10 seconds. Please be as much autonomous as you can.
The tank's not being
DK's tattoo, DK's.
Okay, so you'll see that Tattoo dropped from full health pretty quickly. Basically, the first issue is that the boss used the fear and the curse at the same time, so it took me too long to get into range. I think that basically I'm just positioning myself too conservatively and need to stand a lot closer to the main tank to make sure that I'm always in range to decurse them. Avros did try and heal Tattoo quite a bit, but unfortunately because of the curse it didn't make much difference. The other thing is that Nefarian used Shadow Flame basically immediately after the fear and the curse, so it was kind of a confluence of all of the mechanics. You can also see on the top left that quite a few of the healers are dead. Possibly we should have called out, but of course the other thing is that the priest call was active, so a lot of the survivors are priests who could not heal the main tank. So effectively, between the priest call and the curse, he couldn't really receive healing and got shadow flamed like at exactly the wrong time. and then a couple of regular melees from Nefarian did the rest. So I think that partly this is on me in terms of not standing in the right place and making sure that I'm always available to decurse the tank regardless of the fear. Perhaps a fear ward for the main tank decursor would be a good idea in future. However, the other thing is that we could have, say, innovated McGinnis and also asked him to heal the main tank, but that wasn't done. So I think that next time, if we lose some healers to the Shadow Flame, we'll need to say, let's just have everyone focus on the main tank, because most of the other raid members don't take a lot of damage in this stage of the fight anyway. The corrupted healing confluence was just really unfortunate. So I think mostly this was just unlucky, but we could have handled the situation better.